This month I'm taking a look over the hedge.
Whoa.
I said hedge, not edge. Pay attention, man.
I consider DreamWorks Over the Hedge to be somewhat underappreciated. Released in 2006, the movie focuses on a group of woodland creatures who are confronted with the threat of urbanization. Such a pressing issue. While it's far from one of the greatest animated flicks of all time, it's surprisingly fun and even includes some touching moments, the likes of which most latter-day DreamWorks movies tend to avoid entirely. But what about the game? Is the game just as underrated?
Sort of?
Okay, so to begin with, I feel I should point out that this game is more like a sequel than it is based on the movie. The first 4 levels follow the concluding events of the film, while the rest sees you embark on heists to obtain as much junk food from the humans as possible. While this does of course mean that the game becomes a little repetitive, I do like the fact that you can check on the log throughout the game to see how much food you've managed to accumulate. The game begins at Gladys's house, where we control RJ and Vern in sneaking through the backyard, avoiding the lasers and other traps as we make our way inside the house. In this level, you learn the basics as expected. You can attack using a melee weapon, and you can switch weapons if you're lucky enough to disarm an enemy. I say lucky, it doesn't seem to make a fat lot of difference what you use, as they all seem just about as powerful and sturdy. Not only that, but you can also use a long-range weapon. As far as I can tell, Vern uses a hockey puck, and RJ a golf club, while Stella uses a frisbee and Hammy uses a boomerang. Where have we heard that before?
You've been taking combat lessons from Milo, haven't you?
Collecting 20 tubes of crisps extends your health meter. I really hope they're Pringles. You know, the real deal, not some kind of knockoff. What? Salt and potato?
Oh, you spoil me.
Meanwhile, collecting 20 boxes of cookies extends your energy meter. With this energy meter, you can perform a charged special move. For example, Vern removes his shell and uses it as a means of attack. Indeed, this guy just needs to strip naked to clear a room.
Much like my dad.
Meanwhile, Stella unleashes an almighty stink. You make me so proud, Angel Face.
What a superpower! My dad can do that too.
Health pickups are represented by nachos. How very nutritious. And your energy meter can also be gradually replenished by sweets. Perhaps this game's to blame for childhood obesity, who knows?
Whoa there!
Eventually we meet this blue jay with an obnoxiously loud voice.
You want into the next yard? You need my help.
Why do birds always have annoying voices in these things? This guy could give Iago a run for his money.
Ugh! Bat!
Rufus the blue jay has hidden the key to the gate in one of the birdhouses. Once we're inside, Hammy needs to deactivate the alarm system by following the laser and pushing some buttons. Yep, it's a button pattern challenge. Never seen one of these before.
I did it!
The next step sees you having to loot the kitchen for food and toss them to Penny the porcupine. This sets the tone for the rest of the game, as all the loots are very similar. You break into a house and steal their food and or appliances. Soon afterwards, the animals will find themselves bundled into a van. The Verminator, aka the Sniffer, has captured them. Using Stella and Hammy, you need to free all of your friends before progressing to the last movie-based level, which sees you having to run from one end of the hedge to the other, avoiding both Vincent the bear and the Verminator's cattle prod. Upon returning to the woods, a year on from the events of the movie, the animals find their home has been trashed and all their food taken.
Like my house after a night out drinking. Yeah, I need help.
This is where the game gets going. The woods acts as the hub area, home to the level select and some other stuff we'll talk about later, including mini-games and a hat collection. I do love that hat. Here you can choose whether to play as RJ, Vern, Hammy or Stella, but unlike Shrek 2, you can only play as 2 characters at one time. The first objective sees the animals make their way through the streets and backyards at night, rescuing the porcupine family along the way. You make your way to Ozzy the opossum, who guides you to the next street.
Heather went this way. Follow me.
Heather leads the way in the next level, which sees you having to maneuver past all the electrical wires to the house to retrieve the projector for this heist. One thing I find interesting is that once you retrieve the projector, the films the animals watch back at the woods throughout the game are actually former DreamWorks games.
You know, to remind you of all the better games you could be playing instead. There are many more.
The next level presents us with the first major food heist as we attempt to infiltrate the Martin residence, avoiding all the pests, traps and laser grids blocking our path. Seriously, who installs a laser grid in their garden? Surely the pests themselves are far less unsightly. We then use the fire hydrant to access the next yard. Once there, we're ambushed by bunny rabbits. What you'll notice is that your enemies are adorned with weird colander-like hats. Indeed, this game takes something of a sci-fi spin, as the Verminator has placed all the animals under his control to help wipe out, the animals.
Best not to think about the plot too much, just go with it.
Consequently, surely all we'd have to do is knock the cap off, but nope!
Death to all of you, you deserve it, especially you.
Attacks are pretty basic. You can perform a melee combo with an explosive finishing move, but in all honesty, these are hardly worth performing. Since you need to pause between each attack to get the combo to work, chances are you'll often be hit yourself before you can enact this explosive move. Most often you'll find yourself mindlessly button mashing, and if I'm honest, I'm in two minds about this. Sometimes this can be somehow addictive, but more often than not, it's actually kinda dull.
Who knew beating gophers to death with shovels could be so bloody boring?
What doesn't help is that a lot of the time, the camera pans back so far and the settings can be so dark, you genuinely cannot see what's going on half the time.
Seriously, what the fuck is going on here?
Sometimes I even find my character is randomly swinging at the air, far away from any enemies. What are you doing over there?
Oh, I thought I was the other guy. Oh. I'm not very good at this.
One thing that elevates the combat, however, is that you can work together for more powerful moves. For example, if you hold the attack button down, you can perform a charged attack, enhanced when your partner gives you an extra jolt of power. What's more, you can stack yourselves on top of each other to perform attacks twice as powerful. But this is surprisingly more of a drawback, as you often find yourself jumping on top of your friend at times when you really don't want to.
Get the hell off me!
What this game also lacks is variety. Sure, you can change weapons and each character has their own animations and long-range weapons, but ultimately all their moves are identical. This is a stark contrast to the likes of Shrek 2, in which all the characters had their own unique moves. Some could jump higher than others, some could throw objects, while others had to rely solely on brute strength. You needed to utilize all the characters to progress. Here, the second character is pretty redundant. In battle, they can sometimes be helpful, but as usual, the AI is bloody useless a lot of the time. It genuinely feels like you're some kind of espionage comedy duo, with you playing the straight man and there being the comic foil, forever tripping security alarms and causing all hell to break loose. Slow down, you prick! You want to be shot? One thing I do appreciate is that you can also use firearms once they're dropped by an enemy.
How'd I do that?
And when I say firearms, I essentially mean ping pong guns.
Well, it is a kid's game. Can't be too violent, can we, Tarzan?
Though there are some fire and ice guns dotted throughout the game too. As I mentioned earlier, now and again you'll collect a hat. Upon receiving a hat, the character will instantly wear it, and this will temporarily grant you invincibility. These hats can later be worn as accessories, accessed by the hat tree in the woods. Although, to be honest, since much of the game sees you embroiled in hard-to-see melee combat, this isn't really that much of an interesting reward. What's the point when I can't see who I am, let alone what I'm bloody wearing? After avoiding the backyard security system, eventually we receive help from Rufus, who points us to a laptop and tells us to take it to the loot circle, where he can carry it away. That is one hell of a strong blue jay. The first couple of heists are pretty samey. You loot the food and then need to escort Ozzy back to the hedge with a wagon full of supplies, protecting it from attacking brainwashed rats and such. Occasionally there's some other parts thrown in to vary it a little, such as a traffic avoidance stage, somewhat like the one with Gloria in Madagascar. Wow, these suburbs are oddly congested all of a sudden. What's the holdup, man? Driving that slowly you may as well bloody walk. But some of the heists are more interesting. The next, for example, sees you having to hitch a ride on the train to a carnival shooting gallery to nab yourself a popcorn machine.
One of life's essentials.
But blocking your path is a grumpy Rottweiler.
This is my park, and you're my dinner.
Go on, smile, chicken.
The train ride is... alright, I guess. But you get pestered by, well, pests along the way. But to be honest, I'd still rather that than shitloads of commuters.
The 722 to Worcester needs more carriages. Just saying.
It would also be a major help if we could actually fucking see what we're doing half the time. Can we fucking zoom in, please? I don't even know who I am anymore. Much of the game feels very repetitive, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's surprisingly addictive despite the flaws. But that said, it's not especially good either. The shooting gallery level, for example, offers very little new content. It's just more of the same wham bam smashy smashy, only you have to avoid getting hit by the targets too. You know, because the gameplay wasn't irritating enough already. The chase sequence that follows is a nice change of pace, I guess, but nothing all that innovative. Just run and avoid objects and dodge out the way whenever the doggy pounces. Outrun the bad-tempered brute and he's finally vanquished by a wooden fence. Guess that's his kryptonite.
Aha, your old foe.
Next up, it's a Smith birthday party. After destroying the birthday castle, you make your way to the ventilation system, which carries you up to the telegraph wires. Avoiding electrocution, you make your way to the attic, which will eventually bring you out into the Smith yard. Now seems like a good time to mention the objectives. In each level, there are a number of main objectives and a number of optional secondary objectives. These usually involve mundane things like opening a number of coolers in a level, defeating optional enemies, or simply looting enough food. The more objectives you complete, the more crappy minigames you unlock. Whoop-de-fucking-do! No! And they are indeed crappy. There's a range driver minigame, which sees you having to hit certain objects from a distance within a time limit, but the objects are so poorly placed that it's practically impossible to do so without hitting the wrong objects first, which loses you points. There's also a racing game with unlockable tracks, so the controls are so bad they can stay locked for all I care. And the best of the bunch is bumper carts, in which you destroy all the other carts with the goal of being the last one remaining. These minigames really aren't worth the effort to unlock, but hey, I'm a completionist, so let's take a look at this level's objectives anyway, shall we?
Do you think you can make the writing a little bit bigger? God, don't hit a laser. Oh, that should be easy enough. Oh, for God's sake, are you serious? You can't be serious. I can't be bothered with this. Just run for it. I don't care. Who does that to their garden? Seriously. This is a house in the suburbs, not bloody Fort Knox.
Once you enter the house, you realize the floor is electrified. What? Really? All this for squirrels? And yet somehow there are still plenty of brainwashed animals infesting the place.
Perhaps it's time to cut your losses and move house.
You then need to make your way through to the cellar to hoard some food. But then... What?
Nice try. I heard that.
Big shock, you get caught.
Who knew such a thing could happen when you choose to rob a house in broad daylight?
Wait, hold up. This kid overheard Hammy eating a crisp, but just happened to be completely oblivious to the bunny massacre on the pool table 5 minutes earlier?
Right.
Once again, we then escort Ozzy and the wagon back to the hedge, only this time it's a wee bit different, as at one stage we have to guide him through using pressure pads to deactivate laser barriers from the other side of this gate. Our next journey out the woods sees us attempt to locate a satellite dish, and where better to find a satellite dish than in a bear cave, obviously.
So very predictable.
First, we need to save Heather from some rats. I don't actually recall why she came with us. I wasn't really paying attention. Since she does nothing but get held hostage by stuff and play dead, it's just more work for us, to be honest. As usual, we meet some new enemies in this level, including armadillos and bear cubs. Lost your bearings, dear. Yes, the Verminator is mind-controlling bears now. One would imagine the bears would put up more of a fight against the Sniffer's traps.
You know, rather than just grin and bear it. Oh, I knew you'd love that one.
The next level sees us collect potato chips as the ceiling starts caving in.
Because... priorities, I guess.
We've already collected so many tubes of crisps, so why we're risking life and limb for them is beyond me.
But potato chips can get addictive. You know what they say, once you pop, that's great.
Then, to get to Vincent's cave, you need to traverse the mountains. These levels really showcase how bloody useless the AI can be, as your friend repeatedly falls off the mountain. To be honest, though, the most annoying aspect of this is that your friend repeatedly comes back. You're bloody useless, mate.
Why won't you just... die!
Once we get to the cave, we need to open some gates utilizing some conveniently abandoned keys. We then need to take out Vincent the bear. I have nothing much to say about this boss. Just like all the regular enemies, you just need to beat him senseless until his hat falls off. Once you've saved him and obtained your satellite dish, Vincent joins your posse, realizing he shares a common enemy.
RJ?
The other common enemy.
This is great and all, but Vincent isn't a playable character or anything. He mostly just sits around watching TV.
Well, you were an essential addition to the team.
Next, we're off to the Connor house, through the sewers, filled to the brim with electrocuting weasels. Once we pop out the other side, we free Rufus. Did we have to? Really?
I don't suppose you could tell us how to get into that house?
Can I? Can I?
If you can you tell us a little quieter, please? I've a splitting headache.
Rufus indicates we need to simply access the house via the window. Once inside, we need to tiptoe to avoid the sleeping chihuahuas and loot the kitchen once again. What follows is another escort mission as we protect the wagon, this time from some particularly annoying moles. Good lord, they're back!
Where's Gloria when you need her?
But these aren't just any moles, these ones are wielding explosives. I'm not sure what the Verminator was trying to accomplish by brainwashing all the wildlife like this. If anything, they're more of a public menace now than they were before.
Perhaps giving moles bombs was a retrograde move?
The next heist sees us return to the carnival for a cotton candy machine. I love that we have a brainwashing crisis at hand and we're still just hoarding things. Once we've made it across the mini golf course, we need to cross the roller coaster tracks. This level is visually the worst in my opinion. It's so dark and the camera pans back so far, it's really difficult to see what's happening. Before too long, we face our next boss, the theme park owner. And he has a pretty interesting way of talking.
Son, jiggly fat gelatandrius!
Who wrote this shit? And not only that, he also has a surprisingly solid evil laugh.
But not nearly as solid as...
But I tell you what, this guy has the best death noise, bar none.
You're maybe bar one.
Once we're done getting our oh-so-essential cotton candy machine, Ozzy reveals Heather has been taken by the Sniffer.
Oh no, poor child.
The only way to find out where Verminator is by using Gladys's pudder. Sorry, that's PDA, which we find at her new house. First, you have to navigate the construction yard and then make your way over the scaffolding to Gladys's yard, where you're faced with this thing. I would say that this boss is a more interesting enemy than most.
But I won't because it's not!
Yet we're mindlessly button mashing again, attack the propane tanks, and eventually we make our way to the front yard. Which really makes me question why we bothered going through the backyard first, but never mind. Collect the key to the moving truck and eventually we locate the PDA on the front seat. Naturally you get caught, and you need to outrun Gladys on a golf cart, in what is arguably the most unfun experience in the entire game.
That said, it has a lot of competition.
This level just requires you to jump and dodge objects in your way, but you often only see the object at the last second, and it's so awkward to maneuver. You're right there, mate. Once you return to the woods, you find your home is under attack.
Defend my lovely hats!
This is where having a bear comes in handy, as Vincent manages to take out the bulk of the onslaught. This level is obviously more of the same meandering melee mess. You can hardly see what's going on, the enemies take ages to piss off. It's basically a level with no other objective but mash that fucking button! Then it's off to Vermtech to thwart the villainous Verminator. Say, can't the bear come too? You know, the big scary bear? Because our ensemble, faithful as they are, ain't great. I mean, one is a bloody tortoise for crying out loud.
I rather think a bear may be more menacing.
A major issue with these levels is the camera, particularly if you want to complete all the objectives. Never setting off an alarm is exceedingly difficult when the camera refuses to allow you to see them. And although the clumsiness of the AI-controlled character doesn't count towards these objectives, it can be so easily off-putting. For example, later on, you have to avoid a pretty elaborate security system in an elevator. If you trip the alarms, you're ambushed by animals. Oh, maybe he's getting off at the same floor? No? The lasers would be so much easier to avoid without your partner constantly tripping the lasers and causing them to flicker off and on again. Visually, it's pretty distracting. I'm ironically often relieved when my partner dies so I can gain full control.
Note to all employers, I'm a great team player. Hire me.
Eventually, we get to see where the magic happens, as the Sniffer has Heather cornered in the brainwashing room.
It doesn't hurt a bit to have your scalp pierced by sharp steel electrodes. Watch.
Interestingly, he seems to be making a big deal out of this, despite having already captured some bears, moles, and a vast array of rats and weasels. First, you need to take out the cat-making devices, and then ascend a ramp to take out a conveniently placed, thing suspended above his head.
No, not the camping controller. Any controller but that.
Causing it to eventually drop on him. You know, he could have just moved out of the way, but he's not bright enough to do that. Shock. Yeah, he's one of many game bosses to not have the brains to move from underneath a giant object hanging by a thread.
Thank goodness all bad people in the world are morons.
Ah, super then.
Okay, so this game is not bad. It has its flaws, but the actual gameplay, despite its repetitiveness, can get very addictive. The humor of the game helps elevate it pretty substantially.
Well, now that's not how many times in a row your teacher said you tripped and fell into the classroom aquarium.
I mean, most of the gags are pretty cringe-inducing, but it's nice that they at least tried to mimic the tone of the movie. The gameplay could be a little more inspired, and it would be nicer if we could actually see half of it. This game is hardly unbearable, but it's not exactly cutting edge.
Or should I say, cutting hedge. I'm sorry!
Hey everyone, thanks for watching this video. If you like what you see, please like and subscribe, and if you like it that much, feel free to become a patron too. I really appreciate your support, everyone. I love making these. Just a heads up though, there will be no game review for July. I'm not sure if any of you are aware, but this video concludes my third batch of videos. Each series I make as of yet contains 10 game reviews, and this one has been the most successful so far. So a big thank you to all of you. Thanks for all the subs, likes, and comments and whatnot. If you've missed any reviews, fear not. They're all available in this playlist, which is in reverse chronological order and is updated with every new game review. I'll be back soon, subscribblers. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye for now.